Hey everyone, welcome to the Roto Grinders Morning Grind podcast. I'm your host, Stevie TPFL. It's June 30th, almost July, but it's not quite there yet. It's Thursday. We have 11 baseball games tonight. Oh, I say tonight. During the whole entire day, we have 11 baseball games, 3 early games, 8 late games. We're going to break down the early slate real quick for you, just because if you're tuning in before the early games start, we want to give you a little bit of analysis here. I'm joined by... Can I call you the Bat? I'm kidding. It's Derek Carty. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on again.
I think you wouldn't care if I called you the Bat, right?
No, I really wouldn't. It's basically just an extension of my brain. I'm fine with being thought of as synonymous with the bat.
Yeah. Do you have a bat suit? That's all. I've always wanted to know that ever since you came to RG.
I do. I pull it out in special situations.
I'm so excited that you have a bat suit. Me and you are so much better friends now. Like, just because you have a bat suit.
I like it.
If you guys haven't checked out our sponsor site, fantasydraft.com, make sure you guys head over there, check them out. They have a lot of action here for the late slate. I'm recording this podcast with Derek a little earlier than we usually do. So if the early slate comes out a little bit later, you'll have analysis. I just don't know pricing because, hey, it's not up yet. So check out their late slate. Use promo code GRINDERS. That way you get incentives here at Roto Grinders for free for a year. And you get a 100% deposit bonus up to $600. Let's talk some baseball. We're going to start with Texas at New York. Michael Pineda against AJ Griffin. What's your thoughts here on these two pitchers?
I mean, if you're playing the early slate, Pineda has to be an option just because he's one of the most talented pitchers on the slate. If you're playing like the all day, then I don't think he's strong enough. I like Pineda. I mean, he has some ugly numbers this year, but his peripherals are really good. His stuff is really good still. I think Pineda is going to turn it around and have a really strong second half.
You think he can do that against Texas, though? I feel like Texas is one of the better teams in the league.
So that's the thing. It's not a good matchup. I mean, it's Yankee Stadium. It's Texas. You do like righties better against – oh, no, you don't. You don't like righties against Texas because they're so left-handed. No. I mean, it's more just like if you're playing the early slate and it's 3 games, you don't have a lot of pitchers to choose from, and that's the only reason Pineda's in play. Like if you're looking at the whole day, he's middle of the road at best.
Yeah, he has the strikeout upside. We've seen it in 4 of the last 5 games. He has at least 8 strikeouts in each one of those games. So the strikeout upside's there. You're going to have to take a stand somewhere. Kenta Maeda, we're going to talk about him in a few minutes. He's going to be the chalk against Milwaukee. I really think that's going to be the chalk. So I think Pineda's a good tournament play here. I have no interest in AJ Griffin. Thoughts on him?
Yeah, I definitely don't have any interest in him here in this matchup. I do think he has some potential going forward. He was once a really good pitcher, and I think he's shown some signs of maybe turning into that again this year when he's been, healthy-ish. But this isn't the spot for him. Not against New York. Not with all the lefties. Not with Yankee Stadium.
We'll flip-flop it here. We'll start with the home bats. Mark Teixeira, day-to-day again. Knee sore again. I don't think that shocks anybody.
No, not in the slightest.
Let's talk bats here for the Yankees. Coming off of a really big comeback win last night, Wednesday night. Do you like the Yankees bats here?
Yeah, I think you have to like the Yankees bats a little bit. I mean, like we said, Griffin's a solid pitcher potentially, but it's a really good situation for the Yankees today. I mean, it's hot. There's, a little bit of wind. It's blowing out to left today instead of right. But, the Yankees have so many good lefty bats that Ellsbury and Gardner and McCann and, they're all going to be options. Teixeira, if he's in the lineup, potentially.
Yeah, I think the Yankees are the top stack on this early slate.
I don't think I'd necessarily argue with you on that. I do like some other places today. I do think there's going to be some other hitting, but the Yankees are in a good spot.
Texas bats against Pineda. I know we both agree that Pineda definitely probably one of the most talented pitchers on this slate, but a lot of left-handed bats here in this lineup for Texas.
For sure. And for some reason, Texas lefty bats lately have been they seem to just be really underpriced. Like Chu is $3,500 on DraftKings against tomorrow. Mazar is $3,200. So I mean, even though Pineda is one of the more talented pitchers, it's a good spot for lefties. So where the prices are right, I can see Texas lefties being in play.
I think Mazara's been underpriced all season.
He really has. He went up for like a week or two, and then he's just back to being cheap.
Yeah, a guy that's hitting over 285 this year and 18 extra base hits. That's nothing to sleep on, and the guy's always underpriced. I think I play him more than anybody else because it just seems like he has a solid floor, and he's shown the upside with 11 home runs this year.
Yeah, he's a legitimate hitter. He's a guy, he has the power, he has the contact skills, he crushes righties, he has a big platoon split. Like, I don't get why he's so cheap. He's a guy I use all the time, too.
I'm starting to come around on Prince Fielder. It really seems like that slow start is behind him, and he's starting to hit the ball. Is this a guy we can target here?
I think it is. It's not like I'm going to want a lot of Texas exposure because there are some better spots, some better pitchers to pick on. But he's cheap. Like you said, he's coming around, and it is, at the very least, a good hitting environment for Texas lefties, even if it isn't a good matchup with the pitcher.
You're more of a cash game guy. I got Mazara at 29 and Fielder at 2,800 on FanDuel. Really is going to be able to fit in kind of any pitcher you want with those two cheap guys.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that at all.
Moving on, Minnesota at Chicago taking on the White Sox. Tommy Milone stinks at baseball. I don't know. I feel like every day there's at least one pitcher I'm like, how is this guy still pitching in the big leagues? But Tommy Malone's one of those guys. Carlos Rendon on the other side of things here. I actually have some interest in him just because I think he has some strikeout upside.
I would agree with you. There's definite strikeout upside with Rendon. This is the spot where I want to pick most of my hitters from. The Yankees are in a good spot. I think the White Sox are in a better one. Like you said, Malone is – he's not good. Yeah, he stinks. He stinks. He's a lefty fly ball pitcher in one of the best parks in baseball for righty power. So Chicago White Sox righties are going to have a day against Malone, I think.
Yeah, and we can look at a lot of them here. Lowry, Frazier, Garcia, Navarro as a punt catcher, and, of course, Jose Abreu.
Yep, and don't forget Tim Anderson. I mean, not a power guy, but still a guy who's, underpriced on FanDuel again today, I think. I don't think he's done. They at least
bumped him up to $3K.
3,000 now. So he's up more, but still very much viable at that price. And he'll be setting the table for all those power bats.
Yeah, I still think he's your shortstop for cash games, unless you can fit in Seager, and we'll talk about him here in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Any bats here really stand out to you on Minnesota? I know Dozier's hot. He has the platoon splits. Is he a guy you might target?
He's a guy I'm going to target. I do think Rodon has upside today, but the upside is more in terms of the strikeouts, not necessarily the run prevention. He does have a pretty big platoon split, so righties can do damage against him. And like I said, this is the second best park in baseball for righties behind Coors Field. So the Twins' best righty, who is just tearing the cover off the ball right now, has to be in play.
Yeah, my favorite tournament play actually is here on Minnesota. Everybody's going to try to get in Todd Frazier here in this matchup, which I think that's an excellent play. But Trevor Plouffe for $2,500, I feel like he's a great pivot, and you save $1,600.
I can definitely get behind that. Plouffe is very much in play today, and the savings are nice, especially because Frazier, he had a home run last night. But, I mean, he's really been a home run or bust. And, yeah, the home run upside is definitely there today, but he hasn't been very good when he's not hitting the ball out of the park.
Hey, don't discredit him. He had a double tonight too.
Did he? Okay, I missed that. But, I mean, I like Frazier. I love Frazier. I want to be able to start playing Frazier again, but it's just been hard lately.
No, it's been hard all season. A guy, he has, 22 or 23 home runs this year, but, batting 200, he's the definition of tournament play because he really is boom or bust.
Yeah, this year for sure.
Moving on to the last game of this early slate, we have the Dodgers at Milwaukee. I kind of alluded to Kenta Maeda here against Milwaukee. I was really heavy on Brock Stewart, on Wednesday night. I'm going back to the well here. Milwaukee just stinks against righties. It was one bad inning that got Stewart. I think Maeda could do damage here against the Brewers.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I I thought Stewart was maybe a little overrated last night. I think Maeda might be a little overrated today, but he is going to be, I would imagine, the top option of this early slate. And, I mean, he's going to be in a pretty good position for a win against Davies. I expect the Dodgers to score some runs. I expect him to strike out plenty of Brewers. The only downside is that it's not a good park. It's, a pretty sizable downgrade in parks for him. The roof's going to be open during the day. It's going to be, mid to high 70s. So there's definitely some downside. This isn't a slam dunk matchup for Maeda, but he is one of the better options on a 3-game slate.
Call me crazy. It's a 3-game slate, and I feel like you got to do something in tournaments to get an edge. And Zach Davies is interesting to me. We have a Dodgers team who's super cold. Jock Peterson, he went into the wall the other night, hurt his shoulder. Yasiel Puig has a knee contusion. He left the game. What type of lineup could we possibly see here for the Dodgers? And is Davies a guy you might look at in tournaments?
In a 3-game slate, like, everyone has to be like an option.
Of course,
don't they?
Except for Tommy Malone.
Except for Tommy Malone, that's the exception. Davies wouldn't be one of the first guys I would look at. He might be the last guy I would look at. Maybe AJ Griffin would be behind him too, but I don't know. Like, it would depend on the Dodgers lineup. If there are a lot of guys missing, I can maybe see it, but they do have, even though they're cold, even though they're going to be missing a few guys, they do have plenty of good bats and quite a few good lefties. I think Agon is starting to turn it around a little bit. Corey Seager's obviously elite. Utley's not bad. So I can see him in a GPP, but I don't know. I can also see him getting hit hard.
No, I definitely agree with that. It would be I'd have to roll out multiple teams to have Davies out there, but I do think he's interesting on FanDuel. Let's talk bats in this game. We'll start with the Dodgers here. I already alluded to that I like Corey Seager. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I always love Corey Seager. It's never going to take much to talk me into him, especially on a day with all the things I said that are working against the pitchers. They're working in favor of the batters. It's a huge park upgrade for the Dodgers. The roof's going to be open with mid-70s temperatures. He's going to have the platoon advantage. Like, Seager's going to be, I would imagine, the top shortstop of the slate.
Adrian Gonzalez. I can't remember the last time I see Adrian Gonzalez, if ever, get ejected from a baseball game.
Yeah, I didn't see what happened. I actually played him tonight, and he was luckily I didn't need him, but what happened? Like, I saw people tweeting that, like, it was the most ridiculous ejection ever. Is that true?
I haven't seen it either. After that second inning for Stewart, I turned baseball off.
Yeah, I can see why.
When you have 95% exposure to somebody, yeah. But yeah, I think it was a bad pitch call because it was a strikeout and he got ejected after that or between the innings. So it had to have been something to do with that.
Yeah, I saw, like, people were tweeting, like, he basically just gave the umpire, like, a nah wave, like just kind of, brushed him off a little bit and then just got tossed, which I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it. Unless you're getting yelled at in your face, you need to have more exposure than that as an umpire.
Yeah.
People are paying all this money to come out and see these star players play baseball. Like, it frustrates me. Like, I get you need to respect umpires, but, have a little bit of leeway.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So, anyway, any other Dodgers bats here? It's tough to project what the outfield's going to look like with all these injuries.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I would imagine Trayce Thompson is going to be playing today and having a good lineup spot, so I think he could be a good option today.
Yeah, we might see like Trayce Thompson and what's that young kid's name that they called up? Oh, is it Chris Taylor and Scott Van Slyke? That could be the outfield.
That could be the outfield. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be ugly. But, yeah, any of the lefties, and then plus Trayce Thompson. I always like Trayce Thompson. I think he's a kid with a lot of upside. Any Milwaukee bats that you want here?
Not really. I mean, like I said, this isn't a slam dunk matchup for Maeda, so I can see them maybe being a sneaky stack. In a 3-game slate, everyone is really, but I definitely think there's some blow up risk for Maeda. So I could see the Brewers as a stack, but in terms of just identifying, one guy, I don't know. There's no one that really sticks out.
Now, it's something that I love to do on a 3-game slate. I'm definitely going to do it. If I roll out Maeda and a bunch of my lineups here, I'm going to have a Milwaukee hedge stack. It's going to happen.
And I think that makes a lot of sense.
Let's move it on over to this 8-game late slate. It's actually a pretty interesting slate. We don't have any slam dunk pitchers. Yeah, we have Bumgarner, who's in probably a good spot to pick up a win, but I really don't think we have anybody that's like slam dunk, 30-plus point upside here.
Absolutely not. Not tonight. There's a bunch of pitchers who are in okay spots, and all of them have some kind of problem with the matchup or some kind of blow up risk. It's an interesting slate.
All right, let's break it down. Cincinnati at Washington, Gio Gonzalez, Brandon Finnegan. Well, I don't mind Gio. I just don't know if this is necessarily the spot I want to target him. What's your thoughts on Gonzalez here?
I hate to say it, but Gio was one of my favorite pitchers today.
Okay.
He is. I mean, he's been bad lately, which scares me, but the underlying talent is there. And I do think there's plenty of upside here. Anytime you can get the Reds away from Great American Park is a good thing. I mean, this is a significant park downgrade for them. He's, facing a team whose best hitters, Jay Bruce and Joey Votto, are left-handed. Billy Hamilton's going through concussion protocol, so he's not going to be in the game today, not going to be able to take advantage of Gio's problems with preventing steals. And I think Gio stands a really strong chance of getting the win. I think the Nationals are going to do serious damage against Brandon Finnegan.
I thought this game was in Great American Ballpark. I read it wrong. I actually have a lot more interest in Gio now. See how much ballpark matters?
It matters a lot.
Like, if this was in the American Small Park, I wouldn't have any interest in Gio, but everything you just said makes sense now that I see that it's in Washington.
Yeah, and obviously there's strikeout upside. Gio comes with strikeouts. The Reds strike out at a decent clip, especially against lefties. So there's blow-up risk and there's upside.
Brandon Finnegan on the other side here. Washington, one of the hottest teams in baseball right now. I have absolutely zero interest in Finnegan.
Yeah, zero interest in Finnegan. The Nationals are actually my favorite offense of the slate, at least to start the day.
Well, I wonder why. Cincinnati has the worst bullpen in baseball.
That has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, like one of the hottest teams, one of the worst bullpens. Let's talk bats here in this game. Cincinnati, you mentioned Votto and Bruce. I don't have any interest in those guys, but as a one-off guy, Adam Duvall, love this guy.
Adam Duvall is always in play as a one-off, especially against a pitcher like Gio who can give up a long ball, a lefty that he's going to have the platoon advantage against. So I'm a big Duvall fan. There's always power upside with him.
Yeah, and he's super cheap on FanDuel tonight. Like under 3K, he's 2,900. I think he's going to be really popular.
Yeah, I can definitely see that being the case. That's too low for him.
Really, anybody else for the Reds here that you like?
No, not really. No.
I like Cozart when he was hot earlier this season. He's cooled down a lot. I'm really just going to play Duvall, and that's it here from the Reds. Now, Washington, on the other hand, is this a time that we just load up on even some of these lefties against the lefty and just wait for that bullpen?
It is definitely a viable option. I mean, you're going to prefer the righties, but obviously the best Nationals bats are lefties, Harper and Murphy. But there's plenty of good righties here too, like Jason Worth, I would imagine. I don't know what he's priced at, let's see, but he's going to be, he looks like he's pretty reasonably priced. He's a guy who I really think is kind of the top guy to target.
Anthony Rendon at third base. Just go ahead and lock him into your cash games.
Yes, completely agree with that also.
What's your thoughts here on Wilson Ramos? He's hitting almost 340 this season. Is just one of his best seasons we've seen?
Definitely one of the best seasons we've seen. He's going to be, if not the top catcher play, one of the top catcher plays. So he's a guy that's in obviously a really good spot.
If we get in any of these random guys up towards the top of the order, like Michael Taylor,
yep, he would be great.
Yeah. So just pay attention when lineups come out. If you see any of those guys, take advantage of it. This is a good matchup here for the Washington Bats. And Taylor, a guy that can hit righties, too, if they get into the bullpen.
For sure.
Cleveland at Toronto. Toronto coming from Coors to Toronto here after playing a lot of baseball within 12 hours. Carrasco and R.A. Dickey. What's your thoughts on Carrasco against the Blue Jays?
If he was priced better, I could see him being an option at the very least in GPPs. He seems a little expensive for me. I mean, yeah, he's going to have the platoon advantage against, all the best Blue Jays bats with the exception of Michael Taylor and Ezekiel Carrera. Yes, there's going to be plenty of strikeout upside, but it's not a good park. It's a really powerful Jays team. There's a lot of blow up risk here too, and for the price, I can't really see him as an option unless your logic, I guess, is that people aren't going to want to spend that, and so in a GPP you're going to get low ownership.
Let me throw a line at you and see what you think. 7 innings, 8 strikeouts, 2 earned runs.
I mean, if you got that from him, I think you'd be very, very happy in this matchup. I tend to think it's going to be more like 3 or 4 earned runs, on average.
That's fair. I think that's definitely fair. I love this strikeout upside here. Toronto, they're missing one of their best bats in Baptista. I don't think people realize how much Justin Smoke means to this lineup. He's been dealing with an injury. Could be a little bit of a right-handed heavy lineup here, and Carrasco could definitely have some strikeout upside.
I completely agree with that. There's very definite strikeout upside.
R.A. Dickey, on the other hand, no interest for me. I'm guessing you might, maybe, no?
No, definitely no interest in Dickey. I mean, he's just not a good pitcher at this point in his career. The Indians are, in a good park today. They're going to probably put up some runs on Dickey. And Dickey, too, there's just no strikeout upside with him. He's in real life, he's all right, I guess. In DFS, just no thank you.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. Love the bats here. Just about everybody for the Indians are in play for me. One of my favorites here, if he's in that leadoff spot, is Rajah Davis has been swinging a hot bat. And he's hit Dickey in the past. I know you don't like BVP. I'm completely okay with that. But anytime I see a knuckleball, the first thing I do is I pull up BVP. And Rajah Davis has some really solid numbers against Dickey.
Yeah, it is nice to have that backed up against a knuckleballer because, I mean, it's just such a abnormal pitch. The only problem I would have with Rajah Davis is that a lot of his value is based on speed, and Dickey does not allow steals at all.
That is true. He definitely doesn't. But 3K leadoff, I'm in.
I can see it.
Especially with an offense behind him that we like. We like this offense behind him. Give me a couple of your plays here for the Indians.
I mean, I think your plays are the guys with the most overall talent. So it's Kipnis, it's Lindor. Those are my 2 plays. Knuckleballs in general, they tend to be less effective against guys who are elite hitters to begin with, rather than guys who are crappy hitters to begin with, like more than like a fastball or a curveball, or relative to that. So the guys that are elite hitters on the Indians, Kipnis, Lindor, they're the guys that I would be targeting.
I've been saying it all year in tournaments. I love going Napoli over Santana. This is another spot that I'm going to do that, especially if I'm going to stack up the Indians.
I can see that. There's always power upside with Napoli. It's a good park for power, so I can get behind him.
I want to play Chisenhall again. Man, he's been so hot, and I don't know if I'm going to play him here against Dickey, but gets a ballpark bump here, and man, he's swinging a good bat right now.
He most certainly is. I don't know if I'm going to be on him, especially in cash games, because he tends to be buried in the order. But, I mean, as a GPP guy, if you want to try to ride that out, all right.
Miami at Atlanta here. Wei Yin Chen against Mike Foltynewicz. Chen really piques my interest. I think he's the guy that I'm going to, especially on draft and DraftKings as an SP2 here. I just love lefties against the Braves.
You have to love lefties against the Braves. Righties against the Braves are super overrated. Lefties against the Braves are great. I mean, Chen isn't by any means a good pitcher, but he is against the Braves. He's getting them in Turner Field, which is great for run prevention, great for strikeouts, and they just roll out so many lefties that he's gonna have a pretty good game here, and he's cheap. He's definitely an SP2 option.
I think he's pretty safe for a win, too. Foltynewicz is a guy that I like. I've talked about him quite a bit here on the podcast. Hard thrower. He's coming off the DL. We don't know what his pitch count situation is going to be. And, the Braves bullpen stinks too. So I definitely think the Marlins can score some runs here against Foltynewicz.
Yeah, I completely agree. That is definitely a thing. I think Chen has a pretty good chance of getting the win.
Let's talk Marlins bats first here. When Foltynewicz struggles, it's usually home runs to lefties. Justin Bour, that big power lefty in first base. What's your thoughts on Bour here?
I think Bour is going to have a pretty good chance of hitting a home run because, like you said, that's what Folty does. He gives up a lot of fly balls, and lefties can definitely take advantage of that. but we're still a little overpriced on DraftKings. He was over 5,000 the other day, which is just crazy. But he's still 4,500 today, which is more expensive than I want from him, especially because they've been hitting him more like sixth as opposed to fourth or fifth like he was last year or earlier this year. So more of a tournament guy.
Christian Yelich, speaking of price tags, he's going to be pricey pretty much everywhere. Pretty solid floor. Is this a spot you're going to target Yelich?
Definitely a spot you can target Yelich. Again, I think there are maybe some better spots tonight, but he's pretty well priced. 4,300 on DraftKings. I mean, less than Bour for Yelich. Yeah, that's a nice price.
Any other bats here you like for the Marlins?
Those are the main ones I think you're going to target. Like if Ichiro is still really cheap and he's leading off, I can see him. But yeah, that's really about it. Ichiro is just way too overpriced these days.
Yeah, we just enjoy watching him hit, but I'm not going to spend that price tag for Ichiro on my fantasy teams. Any Braves that you want to target here against Chen?
Honestly, not really. I mean, they have so many lefties. Like the only guys that could maybe be in play are their righties, and even at that, you don't want them. It's not a good park. It's not a good, team total for them. They're not going to get a lot of at bats. I mean, if you really want to squint, you could maybe make a case as a one-off for like a guy like Jeff Francoeur, but I don't know. I think you're stretching.
What if I throw a name at you, Adonis Garcia?
Adonis Garcia is another one of those guys. Like if you squint, maybe.
Yeah, he would be a punt play. He's cheap. He'd be a punt play. That's about the only time I'm going to target Adonis here. Flowers as a catcher, as a punt play. I don't hate it. I love punting catcher. And Chen, when he does struggle, it's against righties. So if you want to punt with a catcher against a struggling lefty against righties, sure.
Yeah, the Flowers is cheap, 2,300 on FanDuel. But on DraftKings, him and Adonis are both too cheap. They're both too expensive, rather. They're both over 3,000, so they're not even true punts. If they were cheaper, I could see it, but I don't know. The prices don't really work out for me today.
Moving on, Detroit at Tampa. Downgrade ballpark here for Detroit. Jordan Zimmermann against Jake Odorizzi. Thoughts here on these pitchers?
I'm interested in Odorizzi, and I hate Zimmerman in general. Like, Zimmerman is so overrated. Zimmerman is his past couple outings, I think he's gotten hit hard, and it should be expected because he was just so far overperforming what he should have been doing earlier this year, and it's all going to come crashing down.
I'm so happy that it's starting to happen. He was pitching way over his head. The problem with Zimmerman here is, where do we really pick on him here with the Rays lineup? Like, especially if Dickerson's still going to be out with his thumb injury, is there a spot? Maybe Brad Miller, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, Dickerson would be the guy if he was healthy that I would want to pick on him with, but I don't know if that's going to be the case. I do think Brad Miller's in a good spot. He's a guy who I really like today. Maybe a little more expensive than you'd want him, but I do think this is a good matchup for him.
Yeah, I have no interest in Odorizzi, so try to sell me here.
I mean, the case for Odorizzi, I guess, is that this is a Tigers team that is getting a park downgrade. I mean, they're going from Comerica, which is kind of a sneaky hitter's park, into a pretty extreme pitcher's park. They strike out a decent bit. Odorizzi comes with some strikeouts, and I think that's the pitch for him. Also, I guess you could include the price. I mean, he's cheap. He's cheap. He's an SP2 option on DraftKings for sure. Mostly based on upside. He's a decent pitcher in an okay matchup with strikeout upside.
Yeah, I guess I can get that, but man, when he struggles, it's hard contact, and he's given up a lot of home runs this year too. So I'm not against the Detroit stack here. I really am not. That's pretty much the only way I'm going to play the Tigers outside of Miguel Cabrera. $3,600 for Miguel Cabrera. I don't care what ballpark he's in. I'm going to play him at that price tag.
That's a good price tag for him for sure.
Yeah, I don't know what he is on Fantasy Draft or DraftKings. He's 8,100 on Fantasy Draft. Like, sign me up. I'm going to play him at that price tag. I don't care who he's facing.
Yeah, 4,200 on DraftKings, which is, I mean, it's cheap for Miguel Cabrera, but still maybe a little. Yeah, no, it's cheap for him. I think he's definitely an option.
Yeah. nothing else really excites me. Like I said, I'm going to stack them, and I'm not going to really play anybody else.
I can't argue with you on that.
Cubs at the Mets, John Lackey. It's Steven Matz pitching, right? They just pushed him back a day.
Yeah, it's Matz.
All right, so we get Matz against the Cubs and John Lackey. What's your thoughts here on these two guys?
I think they're both going to be in play as pitchers. I would imagine Lackey is going to be more popular than more. How do I phrase it? People are going to like him more than I like him, just because in general, I have a hard time paying ace salary for a guy who is 40 years old and is just so far exceeding anything we should expect him to do. Like, I'm okay missing good Lackey starts because I have a hard time buying into this.
All right, come on. He's only 37, soon to be 38. Give him a little bit of a break. What do you put in? Do you put any stock into his swinging strike rate is way up this year, and his strikeout rate is almost 7% higher than it was last year?
Yeah, I mean, he's having a good year, but like out of nowhere, like he hasn't had a strikeout rate this high ever, not a single other time in his career. Like, where is it coming from?
It's like 4% higher than what it's ever been in his career. It's crazy. Even like in 2005 when he was with the Angels, one of his best seasons, it was only 22% then. Like, you have to think that the strikeouts are going to regress, but is this a spot where it's going to regress? The Mets lineup is pretty bad right now.
Yeah, the Mets lineup has been really bad, and I think that's the case for him. I would be more comfortable playing him if he's not going to cost you like the same price that you would have to pay for like, Carlos Carrasco or Madison Bumgarner. Like, I don't buy him as a pitcher of that caliber, so I can't in good conscience pay for him or tell people to pay for him. Like, if he was, 7,000 or 8,000 on DraftKings, like, yeah, for sure. At close to 11, I can't do it.
DraftKings points, 22 points, over or under?
I have to take under. I do.
That's fair. I'll take the over. I think he's a solid play. I really do. I think he's going to get run support. I don't think it's going to be a lot. I think Steven Matz is a pretty good pitcher, but Matz, 3 of his last 4 starts, he struggled.
He has. And I mean, Matz is like the ultimate high upside, high risk play for me today because he's struggled lately. He's complained of elbow soreness. So, I mean, there's a very, easy link to draw there. But and then you look at the matchup, which is a boom or bust matchup to begin with. It's the Cubs who can either, do a bunch of damage or strike out a lot. So Matz is like right in that sweet spot today where he's either going to have a phenomenal game or just a terrible one.
I definitely agree with you, but at what point do the Mets just say, all right, we need to get Syndergaard fixed, we need to get Matz fixed, the season's just in the bag for us because they're dealing with so many injuries right now.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to watch. Like, you hope they're not jeopardizing their futures just to kind of make a run because, I mean, they are still in the playoff hunt, and I would imagine that's playing a part to some degree. But, I mean, these guys have a really bright future. You don't want to see that messed up.
Yeah, man, this pitching staff. They even have Wheeler coming back soon, too. Like, this pitching staff, it reminds me of that Phillies pitching staff we had, 10 years ago, 8 years ago?
It was like Halladay and Hamels and Cliff Lee, yeah.
It was pretty stout, but back then Cliff Lee and those guys were actually good. So, all right, let's talk Chicago bats here. Really, I don't love the bats from either side, but I'm not against the Chicago stats because of the way Matz has been pitching.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I wouldn't normally take them if we know Matz is right, but just because of the blow up risk, because he could be hurt. That's the reason I think for a Cub stack.
Zero interest in any Mets bats here outside of Cespedes as a one-off.
I would agree with you on that. I don't really see any Mets really being in play. I mean, Lackey struggles a little bit with steals. If the Mets had someone who could steal a base, like, I could maybe see it. Like, maybe if Diaz is leading off and super cheap, I don't know what his price is, I could see, no, he's not even cheap enough, so forget it.
He's been salary on FanDuel.
Oh, min salary on FanDuel. All right, so on FanDuel, then maybe an option as a one-off.
Moving on, moving out. Kansas City at St. Louis. Flip-flop here. Mike Leake, Chris Young. Mike Leake, Chris Young. Oh, man. Man, what are we coming to here?
Chris Young's one of those guys, like you said, who you wonder how he's still in baseball.
Massive fly ball rate, gives up a ton of home runs. Like, Kansas City's a good baseball team. They really don't have anybody in their farm system better than Chris Young.
Like, I don't know. Kansas City just does whatever they want. Like, I don't know. They don't play by normal rules. They don't seem to care a whole lot about, like, I don't know, expectation. They're just like, whatever. I don't know. But it works for them, so I can't explain it. Chris Young, though, I mean, not a good pitcher. Finally this year, his surface stats are catching up with his just horrendous peripherals, and I would imagine we're going to see some Cardinals runs today.
I think the same could be said here for the Royals. Like, we're starting to see that regression for Mike Leake, too, giving up a ton of hard contact, has 0 swinging strike rate. He's given up 88% contact rate this year. I think the Royals are in an excellent spot here, too.
Yeah, I would agree. The Royals they're going to be losing their DH. It's a little bit worse of a park for them. So I don't like them quite as much as St. Louis, but Mike Leake, I mean, not a very good pitcher.
Looking at bats here, like you said, they're going to lose their DH. Kendrys Morales probably not going to be in the lineup here. Does that really hurt them? We're not really going to target him anyway. I think we can look at Hosmer. Whit Merrifield, one of my favorite plays. Lorenzo Cain went to the DL, so maybe one of these guys like Orlando or, oh man, what's his name? Brett Eibner gets a good lineup spot here. And Eibner's a guy that I like a lot. He's been salary, and he's been hitting ever since he got called up.
Yeah, I'm not a big believer in the Royals, especially in the NL, because even though you're not going to target Morales, he is one of their better hitters. And having a pitcher in the lineup, it makes it more difficult to turn the lineup over, to score runs, to keep rallies going. So it does affect the rest of the team, in my opinion. And like I said, it's a park downgrade. I don't know. I don't have a ton of Royals interest today.
That makes one of us. I'm going to be – and that's where the cash game and the tournament mind, that's why we do these shows. But looking at the Cardinals. But before I do that, my first fantasy draft play under 8K, Whit Merrifield. I like him a lot here in this spot. I just want to throw that out there. Let's talk Cardinals here. Got to target the power guys, right?
For sure. I mean, Matt Carpenter is going to be an elite play today. I mean, obviously your Brandon Moss and Matt Adam lefty power types are going to be, huge upside options. So Cardinals, you're going to want to get some of today.
Hey, that's funny. Adam, second guy on fantasy draft under 8K that I'm going to be targeting him here in this matchup. Love the power guys. Brandon Moss, one of my favorite plays overall on this slate. I absolutely love him here.
Yeah, I would completely agree with you. I love Moss's power. I think Moss is one of the more underrated power hitters in the game. Like, he's legit.
I know he's not like 50 home run guy, but he reminds me a lot of Chris Davis.
He reminds me a lot of Chris Davis, actually. Like, he's a guy who, I don't know, I think he's easily a 30-plus home run guy, and I think in the right circumstances, he could be a 40 home run guy. If he wasn't, if he was on a different team other than St. Louis playing half his games in Busch Stadium, like, he'd be a 40 home run guy.
No, I definitely agree with that. You move Moss over to Baltimore, well, home runs are going to be a pouring there. But
dealing with what Mark Trumbo is doing today, this year, if Moss is an Oriole, like, that's maybe better, like, because it's a better park for lefties. That's what kind of power he has.
Any other Cardinals here? Matt Holliday pique your interest at all?
Yeah, I can see some Matt Holliday interest. They tend to pinch hit for him a little bit once it gets deeper into the game. So I usually have a little bit less interest in him than I do in some of the more the more stable bats in that lineup. But I mean, the Cardinals are one of the top offenses of the night, so you can make a case for pretty much anyone. And especially at this point, because you never really know what the Cardinals lineup is going to look like, do you?
You really don't. Arizona and St. Louis, so frustrating. You actually have to wait till the lineups come out.
It's true, because you have no idea.
You really don't. Moving on, we're going to head to the West Coast. We got San Francisco at Oakland. Madison Bumgarner against Dylan Overton. Bumgarner, what's your thoughts here on Bum against Oakland?
Bumgarner is – it's hard to know because we're recording this the night before. We have no idea what other people are thinking. If Bumgarner is the chalk today, then people are making a mistake in my mind. He's overpriced. It's not a great matchup. Yes, the A's don't score a lot of runs, but Bumgarner is going into the AL. He's he's facing a team that's going to have a DH. He's facing a team that's going to have probably 8 right-handers in the lineup. He's facing a team that doesn't strike out that much, even though it's a pitcher's park. It's a worse pitcher's park than AT&T, and it's a pitcher's park that suppresses strikeouts. So for me, I don't see the upside for Bumgarner today, even though he is going to stand a good chance of getting the win.
Yeah, I think the win is definitely there. We'll talk about Dylan Overton in a second, but I definitely agree with what you're saying. Oakland's not a team that goes out and they don't strike out a ton. We've seen that all season. Even though they're bottom half of the league in WRC plus against lefties this season, they're striking out less than 18% of the time, and that's not really the upside that you want out of a guy like Bumgarner. Now, you can bump it up a little bit because he is Madison Bumgarner, but man, I don't love him here. I do think he's probably one of the best options for a win. I just don't love him.
I don't either. I mean, if he was like 10K, 11K, if he was priced down for the matchup on DraftKings as opposed to being 13,000, I could see him being in play. On DraftKings, way overpriced, even 12,000 on FanDuel. I'm not paying for it.
Yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see how the lineups come out and stuff like that, because if we get enough value, I feel like in cash games, you're almost going to have to play Bumgarner.
I mean, I think that's where we're going to differ. I mean, as a cash game guy, I don't have a problem fading the ace that I think is overpriced and not in a good enough matchup and playing a riskier guy, because in the long run, I think it's going to even out for me. So for me, I'm fading Bumgarner even in cash.
Fair point. Dylan Overton. Oh, man, this guy, what was it? 2 years ago, he had surgery and never really got the velocity back. Everything I've read about this guy, I don't think he's going to be a good major league pitcher, and it's a lefty against San Francisco. I think we can look at bats here.
I agree. I think we can look at bats. I mean, I prefer San Francisco against righties because they have so many lefty bats in their lineup, but there's definitely going to be some Giants bats in play here. The primary one is obviously going to be Buster Posey. I mean, their best right-hander in the lineup. I think Posey is, almost a slam dunk at catcher today.
Slam dunk indeed. I think it's really going to come down between him and McCann. That's the early slate. So, the late slate, Posey's a slam dunk. You're just going to have to pay for him.
Yeah, and I mean, with the way, especially on DraftKings, where you have to pick 2 pitchers, and especially if you're not paying up for Bumgarner, like, all the pitching's cheap today, really. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be hard to pay for bats like Posey today.
I don't think it's going to be hard to pay for bats like Posey either. I love Brandon Belt and Brandon Crawford against lefties. Lefty-lefty matchup. I know a lot of people don't like it, but they continue to hit lefties, and their price tags make them – people just shy away instantly. They're always under 5% owned. I love Brandon Belt here in tournaments.
In tournaments, I can definitely see it, especially as part of a giant stack, because Overton's not very good. And then one of the other things with him, he struggles quite a bit to prevent steals. So any Giants guys, I don't know. Actually, I haven't played Giants in a while, so I don't know what their lineup looks like. But whoever's at the top of the lineup now, like Span or Panic or, I don't know, Angel Pagan or whoever it is that has speed, they could be an option too.
Yeah, Panic is on that 7-day DL for concussion. So it's been Pena. He doesn't really pique my interest. I might have some interest in if any of these cheap guys get up towards the top of the order, like Mac Williamson or any of these guys that might crack a top lineup spot.
Mac Williamson would be really interesting.
Yeah, I like his price tag on Fantasy Draft a lot. He's only like 5,400.
Yeah, and that equates to 2,800 on DraftKings. So yeah, there's some pump potential there.
Oh, we don't want any Oakland bats against Bumgarner, right?
No. I mean, I'm not paying for Bumgarner, but I'm certainly not playing anyone against him.
Yeah, Chris Davis was scratched on Wednesday night. If he's out of the lineup too, it could be a really pretty easy lineup for Bumgarner. I don't know, man. I'm still on the fence.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it depending on the lineup. If a guy like Chris Davis isn't in there, that's certainly going to help him a lot. So maybe I'll hold off, final judgment until we see a lineup. But for right now, I can't see it, not for cash games.
Yeah, it's fair. And lineups dictate a lot of stuff. That's how you have to adjust when lineups come out every night.
Yeah, absolutely.
Baltimore at Seattle, last game of the night. Tajon Walker against Chris Tillman. Tillman having a really solid season. What's your interest on these two guys?
Minor interest on Walker, mostly for GPPs, just because, I mean, anytime you're facing the Orioles, there's blow-up risk. They have so much power, but they also strike out a decent bit. They're in Safeco. It's a big park downgrade. It boosts strikeouts with the Marine layer out there. Walker has good stuff, can miss bats, so there's definite strikeout upside here. The price is decent, so as a GPP guy, I can kind of see it.
Yeah, I like Tillman for the same reasons on the other side. Like, he's a guy, like, we've seen it now, even dating back to last year. When he gets hit by lefties, it usually doesn't leave the ballpark, so that's always nice. And he's shown some strikeout upside this year. I think that both these pitchers are tournament options, but it's really hard to recommend a pitcher against this Baltimore offense right now. They are swinging hot bats right now.
They really are, and that's why this is definitely not a cash game recommendation. And honestly, on a full slate with good pitching, it probably wouldn't even be a GPP consideration. But tonight, where there's just so much iffy pitching, yeah, I can kind of see it.
Yeah, it's only 8 games. There's only 16 or 11. Yeah, 8 games on the late slate. Only 16 pitchers to really choose from. So outside of the obvious, like 5, 6, 7 guys that are not in play, you're only going to have a few options to give you that real strikeout upside.
Yeah, and that strikeout upside is definitely there with Walker, even if it comes with a whole mess of run downside.
I'm not going to try to pinpoint either one of these offenses. If I play either one of these offenses, it's going to be stacks.
I would agree with you. I don't really see a whole lot of guys that I definitely don't see any guys that I'm targeting for cash games, so I can see stacks maybe.
Yeah, there's not really any one-off guys, right? Like, Kim was interesting when he's hitting in the 2 spot. He's been hitting in the 8 spot. Like, there's not really anybody that you want to play as a one-off. They're so expensive. You just, Trumbo 3,300 on, FanDuel. I might have some interest there, but honestly, it's going to be stacks here for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm looking. I really can't see many one-offs that I like either. Maybe Chris Davis. If you're going to do a one-off, maybe Chris Davis.
Chris Davis is never a bad one-off.
No, he's not.
Yeah, Pedro Alvarez, another upside guy that's been hitting the ball. I want to stack him. I really do.
Yeah, I hear you.
All right, that's going to wrap it up here. We're going to play some home run derby. That's always my favorite thing in the podcast. I'll open it up for the whole all-day slate. All 11 games are in play here. We don't play tiers, and I'll let you go first.
Okay, so all 11 games are in play, which changes things a little bit, I think, because there are some solid options in the early slate, but my top pick is going to have to be Brandon Moss.
Why are you taking my guy, man?
Sorry.
Yeah, Moss. If I had to pick one person on this slate to hit home run, it's going to be Moss. I'm going to go with the wild boar here, Justin Bour.
Okay, I can see that. I'm going to go with there's a lot of options. I'm gonna go with Brian McCann.
Going back to that early slate with a catcher, I like it. I'll go late slate with a catcher, and I'll go Posey.
I like it.
Just because you went catcher, I felt like I needed to go catcher.
Well, I'm glad I tricked you into that.
Right?
I don't want to, but I have to. I'm gonna go Todd Frazier.
Frazier it is for the last pick here. Oh, I'm going to go against the knuckleballer in Toronto, and I'm going to go Mike Napoli.
All right.
I love his upside this year. I just never thought we'd see Mike Napoli before the All-Star break with 16 home runs.
Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that either.
At the end of the day, he doesn't have to score the most fantasy points. Give me a pitcher you think is going to pick up a win here.
Pick up a win? I will give you Gio Gonzalez.
I like it. I like it a lot. I'm going to go Chen. I really think Chen picks up the win against Atlanta. I really like Chen on FanDuel at 8,400.
I agree. I like his price actually on DraftKings more. 8,400. That's higher than I was expecting on FanDuel, but he is in a good spot today.
I think 40 is very feasible in the matchup against Atlanta, right?
I mean, any lefty against Atlanta, that's in play.
Yeah, I think it's definitely there. He would have scored 39 against him last time with a win. I like the win opportunity a lot better here. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, it's an interesting slate. I mean, as you probably heard as we talked about it, like there's not a lot of pitchers to really be enthusiastic about today. There's a bunch of guys with question marks. So good luck.
I'm putting you on the spot here. Give me a minute of why people should buy the bat.
The bat I've designed over the past 6 years using my background in sabermetrics, running the fantasy sections for Baseball Prospectus and the Hardball Times, and basically layering on all sorts of cool daily stuff: who the umpire is, who the catcher is, catcher framing, and weather, and wind and temperature and humidity, and basically anything you can think of that affects what happens on a baseball field. The bat is probably accounting for it. So yeah, I think it's well worth it.
Buzz. All right, minute done. I let no. Yeah, the bat's awesome. It's a great tool to end and start your research. I like looking at the pictures every day on it and seeing where your pictures come out to where I'm thinking, and it's always pretty similar. So I like the bat for sure. If you guys haven't checked out our sponsor site, fantasydraft.com, make sure you guys check them out. They have a $5,000 home run with only a 6-entry max. So you're not playing against 50 teams here from certain individuals. So it's a really fun site to check out. Make sure you guys use promo code Grinders. Support the podcast if you like it every day. And you get a 100% deposit bonus up to $600. Also, here on Thursday, we have a special King of the Summer schedule event that just kind of popped up so we could get a third event here. It's going to be an MLB contest. They're still waiting for details, so make sure you guys check out the forums here, and it'll be right there pinned at the top, so make sure you guys are paying attention to see what kind of event that is. And for Derek, I'm Stevie. Good luck in your contest tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow.